Hi everyone, Gio here for Independent Guide. So it finally happened, the media embargo is over and we have footage inside Super Nintendo World. In my previous video, which you can check out in the description, we had a look at the first leaks from inside the land, we got a look at some of it, but now we have a full look at everything. I'm in the UK, so there's no chance I'm getting out to Japan anytime soon, but the folks over at Universal Parks News today have published 5 whole hours worth of content from Universal Studios Japan and the new Super Nintendo World land. In this video, we're going to be looking at what I think is the major draw for the land and the one bit we haven't really had any insight into, and that's Mario Kart Koopa's Challenge. This isn't a POV video, although you will see clips from POVs throughout. This isn't a merch review, it's not a review of the restaurants, this is an analysis of the Mario Kart ride. If you want a huge level of detail, if you want to watch every single second of the queue, then check out Universal Parks News today here on YouTube straight after this video. Of course, the link is in the description. So with that in mind, let's get into this video. Remember to like this video and subscribe to help support the channel on our road to 1,000 subscribers. So with Mario Kart, we already had a vague idea of what to expect with the queue line. So here we go. We have the ride entrance, this big entrance staircase with Bowser at the top. And now we get to see the rest of the queue between here and the loading area. So we have these doors to other parts of Bowser's castle. We've got these picture frames dotted around. Here are the trophies from Mario Kart that we've seen before. And then we enter all these rooms that we haven't seen anything from before. This first one is huge. It's filled with switchbacks, which is my idea of hell. And then here's another huge room. You can tell USJ is prepared for the enormous queues that this is going to have. The walkways of Super Nintendo World are really very small, so all the guests need to be inside the show buildings. There's no room for any outdoor queues here. And then there's the third room with lots of queue space. I really have preferred lots of smaller rooms personally. I don't like seeing a huge mass of people in one place. And the centerpiece of this room is the Mario Kart TV truck. And then the queue goes into another room, which is sort of like a lair or a library area. And here the story of Koopa or Bowser challenging Mario to a race is told with this big chalkboard showing how Bowser wants to win the Golden Cup. Interestingly, the board is all in English, and I think this room is much better than the previous couple. It is one big room, but it's broken up into different sections, and there's a ton of stuff for you to look at all around you. Then you transition into another part of the lair. This feels much more mechanical and industrial, and here Universal uses a lot of screens to animate things around you. And this is also where you're given your visor, and this is what you're going to use for the AR functions on the ride. So this isn't a full headset, so there's no actual technology really in this bit. This is something that you're going to wear, you're going to secure it around your head, and then you're going to click the actual technical glasses style bit onto it later when you're on the ride vehicle. And so you can see a closer look at this visor here. Notice there's no glasses, I say, it's just a bit that goes around your head. And so now you have your visor, you're going to enter into the first pre-show room, and this tells you all about the two teams, Bowser and Mario, and what you're meant to do in this room is that you adjust the visor onto your head. It's all done for animations, there's no English or Japanese narration for this. And then there's a countdown and you move into the next room, and this one has Mario Kart driving suits on the back wall, and it's another pre-show room, and this is kind of the main pre-show room. This shows you how to board the ride vehicle, how to pull the restraint towards you, how to clip on the headset onto your visor so that you have the AR functionality. Again, it's all done for images here and animations. And then so that you understand what's going on, the video actually explains that each guest has a different colored steering wheel, and that corresponds to the colors of the shells that you're going to be throwing during the game. And there are a few words in English and Japanese here and there, but it is mainly images. You learn about the different features you have. You can turn your steering wheel to collect items, look at something to aim. You can press the buttons on the steering wheel to fire your shells, and this will get you coins. And also you get points and coins for steering and staying on the ride track. And it's worth me saying all of these features, these are done inside the goggles. So just because you don't turn the wheel at the right time doesn't mean that the actual ride vehicle that you're sat on is going to go off track. The actual ride vehicles you're on very much follow a set path. This isn't a real go-kart, and it's not a trackless ride. And so at this point, if you didn't know what the ride actually is, it's basically one of those shooting style rides like Buzz Lightyear or like Ant-Man and the Wasp or even Men in Black Alien Attack. It's a point-based shooting scoring ride. It's not a roller coaster, it's not a traditional dark ride. Now that we're done with the pre-shows, it's time to head downstairs into the loading area. As we know from previous videos, there are 2 ride tracks running alongside each other, and the cars are dispatched together so that it's like the 2 cars are racing each other as they go along the route. And what we're going to do is we're going to first have a look at the scenes from the ride without the AR goggles to see how much of a difference those actually make. And I'll tell you now, the difference is huge. So the ride at the heart of it is a very simple bus bar system. This is the same kind of ride system you'll find in the classic Fantasyland dark rides at Disneyland from 60 years ago. In that respect, the ride is quite basic. It's really the AR technology that makes a difference here. The ride starts, of course, at the starting line, and this is shown on screen. You can also see that Universal projects onto the ground here, and this makes the ride feel that little bit more immersive. It's not just on the screen, it's underneath you and to the sides as well. What I was most surprised by is the amount of real-world sets straight away from the start here. And when you look at them like this without the goggles, it really resembles a kiddie Fantasyland dark ride. It has some simple sound effects and the sets and some basic moving parts. With no goggles on, we can quite clearly see where the screens start, in this warp pipe for example, but we can also see now that the vehicles are a little bit more advanced than those old Disney rides. They can spin, for example, in this section. And as you're riding, you'll go through several well-known scenarios from Mario Kart. We have this underwater section of the ride here, and here actually we can see there's some kind of glitch where the ride vehicle must have been too close to the one in front, and so it stops. And ideally what should happen here is that the video on the screen should just keep playing. So I know the ride is still new, I know it's in technical rehearsals, it's not officially open to the public, but that's poor. Hopefully it gets fixed, as at the moment this is extremely jarring. Some of the screens are better integrated than others, so I think this one here is done really well actually. And we move into this haunted scene, which is probably my favorite of all of them. Here you have the chandelier moving, the theming was great. But the only thing I wish they would have done to make this scene better is I wish the walls moved like they do on Winnie the Pooh, for example. I think it'd make it feel that little bit more immersive, but also at the same time Universal and Nintendo have to make sure that there isn't too much happening so the guests don't feel motion sick. And then we move into this cloud scene, and this is where you're kind of blown around. And this scene and the one after, I think the AR really adds a lot more than what you can just see here. So we'll see that in a couple of minutes. Then you have this big lava scene, and this is where Bowser appears. I can't tell if this is a straight up projection or if it's a screen or if there's some kind of mapping here, but even without the goggles it manages to look like it's in 3D, which I think is really impressive. And this is the climax of the ride. This is where you're trying to defeat Bowser. This is the challenge. And then we have our final major scene, which is Rainbow Road. I think this is the part of the ride where the ground projections work the best, and especially as you enter into the scene, it really gives that an extra feeling of speed. I think this is really a smart choice by Universal. They're not just relying on the screens. And we end, of course, with the scores as we transition back to a big wide screen and then into the unload area. Now let's see what a major difference the AR goggles make. Bear in mind while you're watching this that in the video the rider is holding the goggles up to the camera, and so they're going to be shaking, and the image is going to be unstable, it's going to be moving, and in real life this will be fixed in one place, so it wouldn't be jumping around like this. But you can already get an idea of how your car here with Toad is superimposed on top of the world around you. This is the section which has the most moving set pieces, and so the first thing you might notice is how much darker it is when you're wearing the goggles, and also how even though these are a series of really slow turns, there's so much action going on that you don't really notice that slow speed. I also really like the interaction here with the Thwomp block, which is moving but also has projections and then hits the AR Toad. So it's a good integration there of technology. And then in this section we can see that the riders are really throwing the shells onto the other competitors, and we can see how that really affects what the riders see. So a few little problems here. I think it's too chaotic, I think there's too much going on. But at the same time, you can see that even with the goggles, the vehicle is moving forward in a straight line. And when it's moving in a straight line, it's really obvious that it's moving really slowly. But then there are some positives, of course. Here, look at this transition. It looks really crude without the goggles, but it's much better here with the bubbles as you move into the underwater world. Having said this, I do think looking at this is very overwhelming, and that's the thing I've heard most described by people who have ridden this attraction. It doesn't seem like there are multiple storylines as well, which I think is a shame. Universal could have used the technology to show different scenes randomly as they go through each of the different areas. In a haunted scene here, I think the AR ghosts do add to the theming, and actually there's so much going on here that there's no need for those moving sets that I mentioned earlier. In the cloud scene here, all the competitors get wings, which is fun, and then you have these clouds I spoke about earlier, and I like the way that the whirlwind effects here, they really add to the ride and they're really well timed. And this flying ship here obviously makes a lot more sense when you can see with AR that there are characters and you can aim up there. And you can see that the Bowser battle is really where you're going to be pressing those buttons to really get the hang of throwing the shells. And I think this transition here with the car movement, with projections, with the AR, this works really, really well. And as we head down Rainbow Road to the end here, I'll sum up my opinion on this ride. I think Universal has done a decent job with the ride. It's a good job. It's definitely not as much of a thrill ride as I was expecting. For the type of ride it is, I do think that the height limit is quite high, and that's probably just because of the spinning, because there's nothing else that can really justify the height limit. Having said that, this is probably the best implementation of VR or AR of any ride I've ever seen. It really genuinely adds to the ride experience. Now, if you don't want to or you can't wear the goggles, then I think this is a poor dark ride. But then again, this isn't meant to be a dark ride. You're taking away the key component of the ride, the AR. I'm also really happy to see Universal actually building some real sets, and this wasn't just all screens. I like the way that the projection mapping is mixed with the screens as well. And honestly, the technical feat to get the AR working in tune with all of this is an incredible accomplishment. The big question is, of course, long term. Will this be the major e-ticket attraction that draws people into USJ for the next 4 years, the next 5 years, the next 6 years? Or, as many people have said, is it fun, but it's not going to be top of your list when you go back? In terms of the AR movements, of course there's been a big change, but I don't think this ride was as big of a development as The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man or Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey, for example. But then again, I haven't ridden this in person, so I am going to reserve full judgment until I do. My gut feeling though is that I'm not as excited to visit this land as I once was. Maybe my expectations were too high. I did expect that being the major attraction of the land, that there was going to be some kind of thrill to this. I don't think I'm going to get that level of thrill. A month or two ago, I would have said that this was the must-do ride on my next visit to Japan. But now, honestly, I'd be happy to skip USJ on a visit to Japan and just wait for this to open up in Hollywood or Orlando. What do you think of this ride then? Is it everything you wanted it to be? Is it better? Or are you underwhelmed? Let me know in the comments, please. I'm really keen to hear what you think. Before you go, please leave this video a like. It makes a huge difference in how much YouTube will recommend this video to new viewers. And please subscribe to get more Disney, Universal and theme park videos. We've recently just crossed the 500 subscriber barrier. Let's get that to 1,000, please. And if you're visiting any of the Disney or Universal theme parks, check out my guidebooks at independentguidebooks.com. I've been Gio for Independent Guides, and I'll see you in the next video.